Hello and welcome to the next episode of Cylinder Radio. I'm your host, Will Roosh, high school teacher in Los Angeles. And this is an educational podcast that is really focused on viewpoint diversity. And my guest today is deeply in that world, but I'm really excited to have a conversation with him because I think that his approach to a lot of issues that we're seeing in society is one that needs more attention and needs a spotlight. And I'd love to be the one who has the spotlight. That's why I built this platform to shine it on people that I want to have an elevated voice. So my guest today is Erec Smith. He is a professor of rhetoric at York College in Pennsylvania. He's a writing fellow at Heterodox Academy, and he's the co-founder of FreeBlackThought. He's also an author. He has been in these culture wars for quite some time. And Erec, I gotta say, it's disappointing knowing you a bit. We've been in some meetings and stuff like that together, reading some of your work and things like that. I don't know why, this might be intentional on your end, but I don't know why that you are not more in these important conversations that we're having right now in like the intellectual sphere on race and stuff like that. Is that, like, I don't mean this, I don't want to insult you. People don't know you as well as they know other people in this conversation. And I don't know why that is, but I'm excited to try and expose that more and more, because the more I learn about your work, the more I'm like, this is exactly what we need. Was that by design?
No, it's not by design.
Okay.
You know, I just, nothing I really do. Well, let me rephrase that. Because I am a relatively lone figure in my field regarding ideas that are, for lack of a better term right now, although I like this term, anti-woke, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like I need to be as loud and as consistent as possible, right? So I want to, write as many articles as possible, do as many podcasts as possible, because I'm one guy and the other side is a horde. You know what I mean?
Sure is. Yeah.
And well, I don't know if they're a horde. There is a silent majority, in my opinion, that feels like they can't really speak out because, they have precarious positions or they just don't want to deal with the drama. But regarding people who are speaking out, it's not evenly matched. So I have to do the work of, 50 guys in order to kind of combat that. To get back to your point that I'm not really a part of the big conversation, I'm enough of a part of it. I mean, I'm getting some ideas out there. I'm talking to people as much as possible. People seem to be reading my stuff, so that's good. I don't know if I need a show on CNN or anything, although I think that'll be great.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know about that, but so far so good. I mean, I have every intention of being more well known. I have every intention of doing that, but I'm in no rush, really. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, so I think maybe one reason is your book, your most recent book. I believe it's the most recent one, or actually there might be one after this, but the critique of anti-racism in Rhetoric and Composition, the Semblance of Empowerment. It's a book that's hard to get. It's expensive. It's not out there. I don't believe it's on like Audible or anything like that. That might be one of the reasons why. I actually haven't read your book. I've gotten excerpts, but my friend Mike O'Keefe, who's a writer, and he's actually helped me with my book, he got it. And he's like, this is like exact. It's like perfect. Like he really, really loved it. And then I've talked to a couple other people, Sam Hedges, who's at Heterodox too. She loved it. So it's just like, I mean, is that something? Is that like that's got to be a hindrance, right? That people can't get access to your work as readily as other people, maybe.
It has been a hindrance. It's the paperback is now available. Okay. So it's somewhere around $35 or something like that.
Yeah, that's a big difference. Yeah.
Still not the cheapest book in the world, but affordable for the most part. So maybe things will change with that. What's more, you know, it's about a specific field, right? You know, it's about rhetoric and composition, and who cares about that outside of academia, outside of rhetoric and composition, really, you know?
Well, can you define that for us? Just like how would you define rhetoric or rhetoric and composition?
The field?
Yeah, the field, or like the field, but also just what is rhetoric? I mean, it's just speech. Is it just convincing speech?
Well, I mean, the most famous and, in my opinion, the simplest definition comes from Aristotle. You know, rhetoric is the ability in any given situation to discern the available means of persuasion, right? The available means, meaning that, you know, in certain situations, you know, there are certain things you can say and certain things you can't say. And in another situation, there are different things you can say and can't say, but you may have the same message, right? Yeah. So it depends on your audience, engaging your audience, and things like that. I find it interesting that, you know, among the, you know, people who are doing the CRT-based, critical race theory-based anti-racism, I think there's a purposeful neglect of audience in Kairos, something called paresia, right? Which means that you're not considering your audience and trying to best persuade them. You're just saying what you want to say. And you're going to be, if you tick people off, fine, right? I think that's the tactic they're taking. And it's a strategic tactic. And I understand why they're doing it. This is, you know, they believe that dialogue isn't going to cut it, right? Because in their opinion, it hasn't so far. So now it's time to, you know, speak truth to power, or rather yell truth to power through a megaphone. And I understand that, you know, I understand using that concept. I just don't agree with the ideology coming through that megaphone, right? So the issue when I address it. Yeah. Regarding, I mean, I'm sorry.
No. I was just gonna say, like, it's funny. It's ironic speaking truth to power when you are in, you know, closely tied up with all of the world's billionaires, or like celebrity billionaires. You know, the administration in power, all of the big corporations, all of the media. How can you be speaking truth to power when the most powerful institutions all around are all kind of seemingly either on board with this or unwilling to give pushback to this?
Well, you know, there's reality, what you just described, and then there's the narrative that helps perpetuate critical race theory and its tenets, right? That narrative has to be about oppressor and oppressed. It has to be about, well, speaking truth to power. It has to be about sticking it to hegemonic society or white society, right? That's the way it has to be. If that narrative goes away, then things start to crumble. And that narrative, even if you're a person of color and you are opposed to critical race theory, they have to fit you into the narrative somehow, right? Yeah. There's a, what's it, Dromdus Personae? There's a list of characters in their narrative, and Black guy who wants to be anti-racist but not in a critical race theory way is not, there's no role for that, right? Yeah. So they have to recreate something, multiracially white, you know, Tom, Coon, all kinds of things. They have to fit me in to the roles that they kind of have. They have to squeeze me into this box that I don't fit in, right? I don't think I'm an Uncle Tom, right?
Right.
You know, I don't think I'm multiracially white. I think I'm a Black guy who has an appreciation for classical liberalism, you know, and dialogue, right? And all those other things that you know, are part of a democratic society, right? Deliberation, reason, critical thinking, fair-minded critical thinking, right? Being open-minded, being open to having your mind changed, and not just speaking insofar as it supports your already grasped ideas.
Yeah, and I don't mean to laugh. What you're
Oh,
saying
you can
is
laugh.
it's what exactly the universities are supposed to be. They're institutions where this is where this all occurs. But I mean, how long have you been like teaching, on a college level?
Including grad school.
Sure.
Um, 23 years, 22.
Okay, so you're an old pro at this.
Yeah.
What have you watched? You've watched this develop thing. I mean, critical race theory is not that old. It's all
No.
new. That's one of the biggest problems with it, is it's just untested. So there's all these really new ideas. You watch this kind of from the get-go. So can you just bring us in to, I mean, what kind of sparked this conversation is what have you watched develop, and then what led you to now be like you said, open this up, like, just give me a megaphone so I can talk about what's happening here, and which is what this podcast is, my aim for this. So yeah, can you just walk through, like, as you watched, like, it first bubble up? Because also I'm sorry, but like, you're being a black man in a university setting, it's not like an overabundance of black men teaching on the college level. It's not like the other cultures, not like how many Jews do we have, teaching college or something like that. Like, there's not. So, I mean, I'm sure that you have a unique perspective when topics of race come up. You might pay closer attention to that. I don't know if I'm just assuming that, but.
Well, I mean, if I understand you correctly, you're asking me how I got to where I am right now and talking, speaking up against certain
Yeah.
kinds of racism.
Yes. Yeah.
Boy, is that a long story.
Okay.
That is an extremely long story. But the short version is this. I wasn't really interested in race when I got into graduate school. I wasn't interested in race when I, got my PhD. I mean, it was part of my comps because it was supposed to be part of my comps.
Okay. Yeah.
I really didn't want to focus things on that. I wanted to do rhetorical theory, history of rhetoric. I have interest in the confluence of rhetorical theory and Buddhist philosophy. I mean, that's the kind of thing I wanted to do. I wanted to be a figure who did that. But then something interesting happened a few years ago. There was a keynote address at a, probably the biggest conference in my field, Conference of College Composition and Communication. And there were some things in that keynote speech that I thought were problematic, like the inherent problem of the presence of white people, right? People of color feeling suffocated when surrounded by white people. And how, language and things like that, and expecting a dialect deemed standard from people of color was inherently racist and things like that. So on a listserv, the WPAL listserv, I decided to, write an email saying, I'm not quite sure that was the best way to go regarding anti-racism and writing pedagogy and rhetorical pedagogy.
That was the first you've seen of it? That was like the first thing where you're like, oh, whoa, what is this? That was like a couple years ago at this keynote address.
Yeah, that was, I've always seen it. And I remember in graduate school seeing it and thinking, that's dumb. That's never gonna.
seeing like, just okay, like that kind of, seeing that kind of rhetoric, like that kind of language being used about whiteness and stuff like that. You've kind of, that's been like fringe for a long time.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
been fringe for a long time. I went to graduate school with somebody who was really into it. I don't think he ever said the term critical race theory, but that seemed to be what he was doing. And he's a prominent figure in the field right now. But yeah, I wrote that email and it did not go well at all. I was attacked mostly. I mean, I don't want to say the word attacked, although it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't feel like I was attacked. I wasn't hurt or anything
Right,
like
right.
that. I mean, there are a lot of people in back channels sending me emails saying, "Oh, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay. It's just this is weird and silly, and I'm realizing some things about my field with this response." And then, Twitter, jeez.
Yeah.
I was scrolling through Twitter, just scrolling through it, right?
Yeah.
And I saw people talking crap about me, right? And I said, "That's not true." I responded with, "That's not true. Did you actually read what I wrote? You're saying I wrote something else."
Right.
Now I'm a bully, right? Now I'm attacking graduate students like I knew they were graduate students, like I was attacking them.
Right. Right. Right.
I wasn't doing any of that. But now,
No.
I mean, yesterday somebody was like, "Oh, that dude who attacked graduate students?" Yeah, it's still out there, right? So all this happened because I sent that email saying, maybe we should think about this differently.
Just
Not
any
you're all
challenge.
stupid. I didn't say that. Not
Right.
you're all idiots,
Right.
right? Maybe we should think about this differently. So the fact that that was the reaction to that innocuous of an email,
Yeah.
it changed me. It changed. There are two parts of my career. There's my career before March 19th, 2019, and my career after it.
Wow.
Before March 19th, 2019, I was writing a book, and a lot of that book is in a critique to anti-racism. But after March 19th, I think it was a Friday, and then the weekend, or Thursday, I don't know. By the end of that weekend, I was like, I have to revamp this book. I have to write it and talk about the lack or semblance of empowerment in this field that is really disempowerment. I have to talk about the allergy, as some authors say, the allergy to reality that is happening in this field. I have to do that. So I revamped that book with a few months to go before the due date. I drove myself insane.
Yeah.
I do not recommend that at all. But I won't go into how that was psychologically taxing. Just suffice it to
I'm
say
sure
that
it
was.
was. Yeah. But
So
did you
and
were you
that
surprised at this? Were you surprised at the rebuttal? Were you, because the reason I ask is, if I would say, "Hey, I don't think we should be talking about whiteness and stuff like that," I'm like, I'm all those. I'm like, whatever, cisgender. I don't even know really what cisgender is, but I'm straight, white, male, Protestant, over 6 feet tall, like blah blah blah. I'm all those things. So I would kind of be like hesitant to I'm not going to speak up. But you, as a black man, did you think like, all right, well, I can speak up on this, and maybe they'll hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I knew people would disagree with me.
Right.
I didn't think it would be a degradation ceremony, like it was, right? I didn't think people would try to drag me the way they did. I didn't. That was a surprise, and it was such a surprise that it changed me. I have a different trajectory now based on that, and other dust ups on that listserv have happened since.
Yeah.
But what stayed consistent is the fact that I am now this person who is going to make sure that the mode of anti-racist pedagogy and scholarship that seems to be emerging as hegemonic in my field anyway, at least gets critiqued to the point where other people are saying, well, maybe there are alternatives to doing this. Maybe there are Chloe Valderis out there and Erec Smiths, and things like that. Maybe we should listen to them. That's kind of my mission right now.
Yeah, but they won't. So it seems like it's not a race thing, it's a politics thing, is what I kind of gather from watching a lot of like the footage from the protests and riots. Like, I've seen a white guy, looks like me, with like a Black Lives Matter sweatshirt, throwing stuff at a black woman holding her black child because she had a MAGA hat on. And I was like, okay, so what is this? You know, like, what is it that, you know, an Ibram Kendi would never, ever engage with you, but he will engage all day long with someone like Robin DiAngelo, or, you know, another, you know, liberal white lady who, you know, is feeding, like, I was baffled about this for a long time. And, you know, it happened over the summer where a bunch of people in my profession teaching said, you know, elevate Black voices. And it was all super, super left-wing Black voices. And like, there's no one even in the center. It was all saying the same thing. And I was like, well, that's not diversity then. Like, where's the diverse Black voices? And I'm not saying like Candace Owens, you know, or people like that, but like, you're not that, Eric. You're a professor. You're a college professor. Like why would we be unwilling to hear a perspective from a professor on rhetoric about the rhetoric being used in race? Like, you seem like a perfect person to elevate, and I don't know what your politics are, but I mean, let's assume that you're not, you know, wearing, you know, MAGA hats and going to, you know, storming the Capitol on the 6th. Like, how do we categorize you in a way that is, everyone's categorizing you, I suppose, in a way that's dishonest because they don't want to deal with what you will bring to the table. Is that the way it is?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're convinced I'm this person I am not and never have been.
Right.
Right. And they have no proof that I'm that person. They have ample proof that I'm this person.
Yeah.
They can read my stuff. They can read my emails. But they'd rather see the email, not read it, and talk about how dumb it is. You know, I mean, it's like high school. No, it's like middle school. Like middle school. These are adult academics acting like 13-year-old mean girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm referencing the movie Mean Girls.
The movie Mean Girls. Yeah, yeah.
Only girls can be mean.
No. Mean Girls. Essentially, it's a lot of I actually just did a live on this because Jordan Peterson was talking about toxic femininity, and again, men can be toxically feminine, but the way he explained it, and I think it resonates, is it's reputation destruction.
Yeah.
Where like toxic masculine is like getting up in your face, like I'll kick your ass and all this stuff. But toxic femininity would be like, yeah, it's reputation destruction, just talking about people, not to people. And that seems very aligned with what this is, right?
That's exactly what's going on. That's exactly what's going on. Like, they won't, people would respond to my email. I would respond back to them, you know, in good faith. Mm-hmm. And people would just ignore my response and pretend that I never responded. And that this person, you know, was the last word on things. I mean, that's quite telling. That is disempowerment, right? I mean, that's what you do when you're disempowered. That's what you do when you feel like you have no power. You do desperate things like that. And okay, I'm going to say this. And if the leaders in the field or the group of people responsible for anti-racist pedagogy in my field are behaving like that, then that's a problem that I need to address, you know? And so I addressed it. I am addressing it, right? And if those same people are kind of embracing victimhood, if those same people are embracing not just the infantilization of people of color, but the self-infantilization of people of color, if they're doing that, I have to say something. I don't want Black people to be associated with disempowerment and infantilization. You know, I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do something about it. People think that I'm doing this because I'm a shill for, white people, or I'm saying we need to be nice to white people. I'm kissing white people's asses. No, this is for Black people.
Okay. Yes.
This is Black. I don't want Black people to look as weak as people are making them out to look.
Okay, that's something that I love and I want to go into, because it's something that John McWhorter talks a lot about. He gets really insulted when people lower the bar, like oh, you don't think we can achieve this? Like, you don't think that, like, you know, like that kind of idea. I have a friend who I had on my podcast, and he's a fellow teacher. His name's Erec Smith, spelled differently, but it's funny. But he's from Gary, Indiana, and he talked about how when he was in Indiana, there was one kind of racism. It's kind of like what Chappelle says, just like Warren, and then like the N-word or something like that. But then he moved to Sherman Oaks, which is in LA, and it's, very liberal and, white kind of liberal area. And he said it was a different kind of racism. It was a I'll take care of you.
Right.
Like that, that's what I mean. It's like, that's what you're saying. Like the infantile kind of concept of, okay, it's my job to protect you. And it's like, well, do you want to hear like what I have? No. I got this. Like that kind of thing. And that is so, as you say, disempowering to the Black community who needs to, I taught as 2 schools that were 0% white, and it was mostly Mexican kids, but it was a mix. And it's like, who's going to be the cycle breaker in here? You guys have to believe that you can do whatever you see all these other people doing. Being told that you can't over and over and over again, or that the world is so stacked against you can never succeed. How is that helping?
It's not helping. I don't know exactly what's going on, with that. I don't know why that's embraced so tightly. If it is a power struggle, and Derek Bell was right, that when he talked about racial realism, and racism is not going away. We can't win. All we can do is, fight against it to maintain or some kind of dignity, right?
Yeah.
If that's the case, then this is about a power struggle. It's about oppressor and oppressed, and making sure that the oppressor knows about his or her status as oppressor, right? And genuflects for the indeterminate future, right?
Yeah.
I forget what article I talked about Spivak, but Gayatri Spivak talks about strategic essentialism. Getting together and saying, okay, for political purposes, we're all gonna, say we're in the same group, we're the same people, right? Just to get what we need. And after we get what we need, we'll reassess things. But if racism isn't going away, if you can't get what you need because it's too systemic, then you have to stay in that essentialism. Right? And I like that. If you're going to essentialize, don't essentialize as infantilized and disempowered.
Yeah, I was reading something from the Manhattan Institute, and they gave a bunch of, I think maybe it must have been high school, Black kids, like they gave them this like poll basically about how do you feel about your ability to go out and make the world into what you want, or get what you want out of the world, be successful, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they gave them just like not even a full like thing, just like an excerpt of like Ta-Nehisi Coates, and it dropped. Like it took the wind out of that. And I was trying to find it to reference. I can't find it, but it was through the Manhattan Institute, and it took the wind out of their sails of what was possible for them. And I think Ta-Nehisi Coates is a brilliant writer and everything like that. But what is the message that's being promoted? He's not necessarily a critical race theorist, but it's kind of in that vein, so to speak. What do you resonate with this idea of what Ayanna Pressley said? Like, if you are gay, you need to align with gay, voices, and if you're Black, you need to align yourself with the Black voices and stuff like that. Like that element of being like authentically Black, if you have to toe like some sort of line, is that something that like what are your thoughts on that? I guess, is that just like how destructive is that, and where does that come from, that concept? Because it's something that John McWhorter and Glenn Lowry just recently talked about in their podcast as well, that they see that like pressure, so to speak. And I don't know if you grew up with that or what your thoughts are on that.
I very much I grew up with all kinds of weird things going on. I suppose I can talk about that again.
Please, yeah. I think it's interesting, Eric, to see like how did you arrive where you are? Like what kind of environment did you grow up in? That kind of stuff. Maybe if you think it's relevant.
I guess it's always relevant, and it's not always easy to discuss, but I'll discuss it. I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood in the 80s, so the wokeness wasn't going on just then. And the whole politically correct thing kind of skipped my neighborhood. It just hopped over it.
Where were you? Where geographically?
In New Jersey, southern New Jersey.
Okay.
You know, you know, that was tough. But the thing is, and people never get this, and I try to tell them, and it goes in one ear and out the other. Like, I was never ashamed of being Black. You know, I was never ashamed of it. You know, I knew that they were trying to hurt me, right? And they were trying to. That's why I hate this infantilization and this victimhood. They would be tickled pink if I was the kind of person who got shook by the smallest thing.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they wanted.
Yeah.
They wanted to weaken me. And now I'm here and people are weakening themselves and saying, this is really Black. You know, and I'm not going to have that. You know? So I dealt with that. Then I went to high school, and high school was interesting because that's where, you know, it was a regional school. So, other neighborhoods were all going to the school, and the school was basically half Black, right? And the other half consisted of white, Latino, and some Asian.
Okay.
Right? So I was like, okay, finally, I'm going to be with my people. I don't have to deal with this stuff anymore, right? So I get there, I find my people, quote unquote, and, you know, it was good for about a week and a half, you know, because then they were like, you're too white, you know, and, you know, we're going to screw with you for that. They were worse in a lot of ways than the white people before I got there, right? The white people I was growing up with, they were worse in a lot of ways. That did something to me. That made me realize that I wanted to figure out why different groups did different things, or why, people were so insular, right? And why people defined authenticity certain ways, right? I was really interested in that. And I ended up getting into rhetoric because, you know, rhetoric is, the building block of discourse being, you know, the values, attitudes, and beliefs that we have, the preferred ways of speaking, referencing, even gestures and things like that. This is James G., a social linguist who talks a lot about discourse. So I was interested in that. I didn't know what rhetoric was at the time. You know, that would come later on. But I was very interested in that. And, you know, fast forward to now, and like I said before, you know, this whole infantilization, this whole I'm going to take care of you because you're powerless and weak, you know, that bothers me. There are a lot of people in this world who would love if Erec Smith ended up being powerless and weak. They would love that. I'm not going to give them the satisfaction.
Yeah, well, and it's so. I'm a U.S. history teacher. Like, there's a lot there that I want to address, but like that, I think that one thing that marginalized communities have to look at is look at what we've been through. Like the idea that you could be, you know, an African American in this country with the history that is there, and you've gotten to this. Look at what you've been through. You are so effing tough. Your lineage is tough to get here. That why are we pushing this idea that you're anything but? Like to get to where you are now, your, you know, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents, like what they went through. Oh my God. And that's your bloodline. So why are we not teaching young people that, like, look, this is where you come from. Look how tough your bloodline is. You can do this in a real way. And it's like not like a you can do it, tiger, like an actual, like, look, come on, this is very capable. But it's so crazy. And I've seen this in the schools that I've taught at, where, you know, where kids who are, you know, focused on, you know, they're into, like, you know, even like Black kids who are into skating or something like that, or they're really focused on school. It's like, oh, that's a white thing, don't do that. And like I don't know, it's that, but then it's being echoed by our politicians. as opposed to just letting people be individuals, and your race is one of the many, 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 many things that make up you.
I have so many responses to what you just said.
Okay, please, yeah.
I don't know where to start, but you talked about individuals and how we're more than just our race and skin color and things like that. There's this tacit attempt to erase individuality, especially among people of color. I see it in my field often, to the point where, you're not a Black person, you're a Black body, right?
Yeah.
You're a Black body. I don't, that erases the personhood, right? It erases the individuality of the whole thing. And I think individuality, besides being an aspect of classical liberal values, which are antithetical to critical race theory, and critical race theorists will proudly say that, right? Besides it being an aspect of classical liberalism, it's also, antithetical to this group thought, right? I mean, if you're an individual, you're going to have different ways of going about anti-racism. You're going to have, maybe you read different books and things like that. You have to fall in line, though. You have to read the same books and worship them, and they are not wrong. Those books are not wrong. If they got published, they're right, right?
Yeah.
When I often speak against the favored modes of anti-racism in my field, people always say, well, you haven't read this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, I read it. I wasn't convinced.
Right.
One person,
I've gotten that too.
was like, you need to read my work on this. I was like, I dedicate half a chapter to proving you wrong in my book. I read your work. You know what I mean? It's just unbelievable. It's anything written by certain people is infallible. If you see a problem with it, there's something wrong with you. You're a white supremacist, right?
Yeah.
And this idea of critical inquiry and picking each other, that's anathema now. You can't do that. That's a form of bullying. If I critique somebody's work, I'm picking on them.
Yeah. Privilege preserving epistemic pushback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm like, no, that's too childish, man. I don't know. I shouldn't have to act like a 14-year-old to be authentically Black. Sorry. I'm not going to do that. That's weak. It's disempowered. All right. Critique me all you want. I welcome, please. Yeah. Read my stuff and tell me why it's wrong. I want to hear that.
No, but it'll be a personal attack. It won't be a critique.
No.
Yeah.
It's not a personal attack. You're talking about my book. I'm fine. If you have a problem with a passage in my book, just talk about it. You have a problem with an article I wrote, tell me why. I'm not going to get offended. I'm an academic. That's what we do.
That's supposed to be what you do.
It's supposed to be what we do. I don't know when that stopped, but we're not so many people. It's academia is becoming a glorified book club. You can't have civil debate anymore, right? That's wrong. It's heresy.
I get why white people subscribe to CRT. I do. I think that there's a lot of them are atheists. I think that there's an element here where people don't know morality. They don't have a good moral compass, and they go, well, what do we know is bad? Well, racism. Racism's, everyone knows that's bad. Okay. So then it's an easy answer. So let's fight racism. And it gives me a little bit of feeling. It feels good to do this. And there's an element where, I think a lot of, white people like to have a Black dude be like, thanks, man. I got you. Yeah. Like to be like, oh, see, I'm cool with you. Like there's that element. I think that it's a lot of virtue signaling to show I am a good person. I am a good person. And it's easy for that. Why do, but in your opinion, you can't speak for all Black people, obviously. Same way I can't speak for all white people, but I just did. Why do Black people subscribe to this? The ones that do. If it's so clearly to you and I that this is not going to benefit them as an individual or Black people in general in the country, why are they subscribing to this? It doesn't feel like it's the same virtue signaling kind of like motivation, but I don't know.
Are you talking about, I just need some clarity.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if I misinterpreted this, but are you asking me why white people are in the CRT? Or?
No, black people. I think that, well, do you disagree with my statement about why white people do it? That it's a way to show easy morals so you can win on a moral plane?
Yeah. Shelby Still talked about that.
Yeah.
Right? White guilt. I mean, other people have talked about it too, but I think he's referenced the most when it comes to that concept. He said something else as well in his book, Content of Our Character. He talked about this term integration shock. And what that means is that, once civil rights were acquired, right, and doors were open to Black people that weren't open forever, right? Walking through it, gave you some anxiety. Like, I don't know what to expect here. I had the comfort of, a homogenous area, and I had, basically a societal excuse for not doing certain things. Now all that's gone. That excuse is gone, and this is a little weird. Not every Black person felt that way, obviously, right? But according to Shelby Still, enough did. And I find that interesting because, a lot of people, that describes some people that I know, right? And those people have no idea what critical race theory is, or they didn't have any idea what critical race theory was at the time. They were drowning, right? They were drowning in expectation and this newness and dealing with racism, right? Racism's not fun to deal with, right? They were drowning, and CRT was this buoy that floated along.
Okay.
And they grabbed a hold of it and said, oh, okay, racial realism, intersectionality. All right, so we're gonna bastardize what Crenshaw meant by it and turn it into the more downtrodden intersections you have, the more ethos you have, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna turn it into that.
Yeah.
And a distrust of, liberal values, right? Debate, reason, all kinds of things. I mean, these are nice, convenient excuses for, I don't know.
So you get that. Even though you don't subscribe to it, you get how someone who's, a reasonable person could fall into that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that helps, because that I've never had really explained to me.
Well, that's
so
my
succinctly.
take, right?
Well, right, but that's, I think it's
I'm referencing Shelby Still, but still.
No, it makes sense to me. That makes sense.
Well, and it's uncomfortable to talk about.
Yeah.
Right, but I have to talk about it, because if I don't talk about it, if somebody doesn't talk about it, and my field is just going to perpetuate. And then, being Black is going to be synonymous with being hurt by microaggressions all day, every day, right? Which I think is really detrimental to any kind of agency one has, right? I've written in a couple places about I don't want Black people to be associated with being shook that easily.
Yeah.
I don't want that. We're stronger than that. We people who came before us, scholars, thinkers who came before us, dealt with much more than we're dealing with. Van Jones said it the best, right? They marched, they got attacked by dogs and fire hoses, and we can't handle a mean tweet. And he's right. So I'm trying to fix that. In my field anyway. I'm one person. I'm not arrogant enough to think that I can do everything, but I need to do my part. And that's why I'm doing it.
Well, and I think it really matters. I mean, like when you said like a buoy came along, well, let's give a different buoy. Like let's give a buoy that's, instead of saying, okay, so I get that idea that I don't think I've ever really piece that together as well. Like all of a sudden, all these doors are open. You go, oh my God, that's a lot of doors. I don't even know. Like this one has like all these, has like all kinds of puzzles in it behind it. And this one has this. And I don't know. I didn't learn any of this stuff. This is a lot. Okay, here's something that can kind of.
There are white people behind all those doors.
Right. And it's all white people.
It's,
yeah. So you don't feel like, okay, so I get the idea of like, okay, well, I'm just, because anyone would do this. Like, I'm going to take this one where it gives me a little bit of like an excuse, like a little bit of a get out of jail free card. If I can't do this, then it's okay. It's not my fault. That kind of thing. So knowing that that's going to be a certain faction within the Black community that's resonating, that if we understand that, then we can go, okay, here's how we solve it. Let me walk through how to, go through these puzzles and blah, 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 and, or how to do whatever's behind all these doors. It comes back to education, right? I mean, just instead of like lowering the bars, let's just teach people how to jump over the high bars. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's overly simplistic, but I just...
No, I mean, it's chapter 2. Yeah. Actually. I talk about empowerment theory. Mm-hmm. And as a kind of different framework for dealing with racism. In fact, it's a framework that should apply to everybody, right? So anti-racism is one of the things that gets dealt with under the umbrella of empowerment theory. And the thing about empowerment theory, there are three components. One, the interpersonal, how we deal with ourselves. The interactional, how we deal with other people and work with them, and the behavioral, how we get things done, basically. Yep. How we work together to get things done as a society. We do diversity trainings, for example. We do the interactional. We do the how do we interact here, right? And now it's like, how do we deal with the fact that this white person is evil, and we're not, and we, so that's a bastardized version of it, but basically, we deal with the interpersonal, right? And we deal with, getting together to try to end structural racism, so getting things done and things like that, right? Those kinds of ideas. We don't do the interpersonal. We skip over the part where we give ourselves our own secure base, where we use rhetoric on ourselves, where we talk to ourselves, where we develop self-efficacy and positive self-regard, right? Which is not self-esteem, right? Positive self-regard is, I know my strengths and my weaknesses, and in this context, I can do this well, and I have to work on this, and I can, have a plan to work on this because I have a strong interpersonal component of empowerment. We don't deal with the inner, right? We deal with, how we're going to work with everybody else. And we don't deal with the inner. We skip this part, and you can see that. That's where the disempowerment comes in, because we never stopped and said, how do we empower ourselves? So if you are disempowered and you skip the interpersonal and you get into the interactional, you're already coming with a shield up.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't develop that fortitude, right? So you're already on the defensive, right? When you walk into the situation, and that's a problem, right? So if you can work, and it's much more complicated than this. It has to do with emotional intelligence and creating what the psychologist George Kohlreiser calls a secure base, which is also part of attachment theory, but he uses it more like workplace situations and things like that. We can't skip that part. In fact, I think there needs to be a strong dedication to the interpersonal component of empowerment. That's what's missing.
How do we do this? Let's say there's a decent group of high school teachers and K through 12 teachers listening to this podcast. How do we embed this, your kind of definition, your idea of empowerment into lessons, into school culture, and then maybe beyond, even inside the school? Like, how do we do that?
Well, some people are already doing it. Mindfulness, metacognition. There are professors, pedagogues who make a point to even have students meditate the first 5 minutes of class before getting into the subject matter and things like that. So things like that are happening, right? And that's good. The Greater Good Science Center, kind of abides by empowerment theory. Chloe Valderi's theory of enchantment kind of abides by empowerment theory. So that's some of the ways you can go about doing it. But it has a lot to do with emotional intelligence as well, right? So there are certain aspects of emotional intelligence that are inherently intrapersonal, right? Self-awareness, self-management, and the competency therein, right? Dealing with them, working to fortify those things will help as well. Rational motive behavior therapy, some of the stuff that Albert Ellis came up with is really good for these kinds of things. The fact that our beliefs about things are the real issue, not always what happens, right?
Yeah.
It's based on Stoic philosophy to a large extent. Epictetus went as far as to say, if you get stabbed, you don't have to be upset.
Yeah.
But I'm not going that far. Right? But there's a lot going on that involves a lack of the intrapersonal, the lack of knowledge that your beliefs might be making this worse than it actually is. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I forget the quote, but it's something along the lines of, if you're easily offended, I'm just going to, riff on it. Like, essentially, if you're easily offended, then people can manipulate you very easily.
Yep.
And that's a horrible thing. And politicians know this. Media knows this. I just posted something today on my Instagram of Tulsi Gabbard talking about how the racialization of everything in society, how everything is racialized, is just, it's politics and it's media just trying to get your vote, get your money, because it's a thing that fires you up, and it divides us, and all this kind of stuff, and it's very few are willing to push back. And I've watched, James Lindsay talked about this before. He said one of the things that upsets him the most about this, and this resonates with me because I watched it happen, is it's soft-hearted, kind individuals subscribe to CRT, and I watch them change. I've watched friends of mine change, and they become hardened, authoritarian, mean people towards the other. And the other might be, it might be a Black woman like Chloe Valderi, and these are, white, always been liberal, very progressive people. They just become bad people. It seems almost, look, this sounds crazy, but it seems almost evil. Because I don't think they know what they're doing. They're using these Trojan horse terms and stuff like that. They don't know the road that they're going down. They really see it as they're on the good side fighting evil, and they're not aware that they've become the thing that they're fighting against. And it's like, you quote all these philosophers and stuff. This is all known. This is right. We've done this kind of stuff before, and yet we're doing it again.
Yeah. And a lot of people, the allies, right? The white allies are abiding by what certain people of color are telling them, who are apparently stand in for the entire race. That's another issue I have with my field. There's a group of people talking for, all minorities, and I think that's a load of crap. And I made it known that I think it's a load of crap. I didn't say that, but yeah, basically said it. And they're believing that, and that person of color may be invested in critical race theory, and they're telling you, oh, well, Black people think like this, and Black people think like this, and Black people want to talk like this, and that's, those same people who listen to that Black person tell them about all Black people wouldn't listen to a white person tell them about all white people. Because right. They'd be like, wait a minute, you're not talking about me. I'm an individual. See, Black people are the Borg. We're the Borg from Star Trek. We're just all the same person.
Yeah, the monolith.
Yeah.
Yeah. it's a real problem because a lot of these people are not, I love the Pope Francis quote, "A good shepherd smells like sheep." And there's a lot of people that think that they're doing something good for the Black community who've never really spent time in a Black community, never really, they might have like one Black friend or two Black friends or something like that, or they buy Ibram Kendi's book or something like that. But this aligns with, like I said, this is the cash in. Ibram Kendi's fabulously wealthy right now. Why would he ever, have like a public, not even debate, just discussion with someone like you? That's not good for his brand.
No, right.
So he won't. But clearly he won't because, and Coleman Hughes said like, hey, we'll raise money, we'll give it to the United Negro College Fund, let's do this. Won't even acknowledge it because it's got to be for money. Like, what else could it be? What else are you scared of? It's got to be his brand and the fact he's getting, he's running the Center for Anti-Racist Research at Boston University and stuff like that. Like, it just seems so clear to me. And clear to you and clear to a lot of people, but it's not to other people. So I don't know where to go from here. I really don't. People ask me that. They're like, okay, well, so you're laying all this stuff out. What do we do? And I'm like, I don't know. Become a school teacher, start a podcast, and that's how far I've gotten. I have no idea how to fight this. I mean, what do we do? What do we do from here?
All I can tell you is what I do, and it's write as often as possible and talk to people like you as often as possible. And share things from other people doing what we're doing as often as possible, just realize the reality of the situation, which is that, we're fighting a tsunami with an umbrella. There's a lot of, there's a lot of force out there against us, and we just have to be diligent and keep going. That's what I'm gonna do.
Do you get tempted to like call out, like, I mean, a lot of this is I would categorize as neo-racist. I mean, it's racism. I mean, to say like Black people are this, Black people want this, Black people, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's racist. And to say all white people are bad, like, that's racist. Like, do you ever get tempted just to like, because you're very polite, people go after you all the time, no matter what. But do you ever like just be like, all right, I'm just going to take the gloves off and I'm just going at them? Like, are you tempted to do that?
I feel like I have done that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, in some articles, I feel like I have done that. Or even when I feel like I'm not doing it, it's taken that way.
It's taken that way, yeah.
I've been told that I'm doing so much harm to the Black community. My Black body is doing so much harm to Black people by saying what I'm saying. And I'm like, if it's that easy to harm you, man, you got bigger problems than anti-racist pedagogy. You need to take a month off or something and get some help if it's that easy to shake you.
Yeah. Well, Oh, sorry. Go.
No. Well, but I mean, I feel like I do take the gloves off and say what needs to be said. Not because I like drama, but because I see an issue and nobody's dealing with it.
Yeah, you got to. You have to.
So yeah.
And you would be willing. See, so one of the things that I try to promote is like let's have a conversation. Like, let's have a conversation between these two. I had like Rod Gray on my podcast. So like, yeah, let's get you guys together. Or I said like, Ibram Kendi, and let's get you in a conversation with Chloe Valdary or something like that. And then I get people coming at me, white, Black, whatever, but from like the woke, saying like, oh, who are you you're trying to just get Black people to go at each other and hurt each other, and you're trying to do it. Like, no, I'm trying to show that there's different ways of thinking, and right. I do think that there is something very valid to the fact that people could and should listen to you, not just because you're a professor, but because you're a Black man, where they shouldn't and couldn't listen to me. I think that I have valid points. If I was a Black trans Muslim, woman or something like that, maybe I would have more people listen to me. But I don't know. I think my ideas are my ideas, but I do think that there's something very valid to have the people who are along this line of thinking, to see two individuals who have maybe similar life experiences, not the same, but similar life experiences about what it's like to be, Black in America, and just share, well, this was my take, and here's what I think is best. Well, here's what my take, here's what I think is best. And just, I just want to see a lot of these conversations, but I'm guessing that they don't want to interact with you, right? They
No,
do they?
no. I mean, a request for elaboration is bullying, right? I mean, that's literally. I've been told that. I asked somebody to explain what she just said a little bit better, and I was accused of trying to silence her. So I mean, that's what's going on. And the thing is, I mean, dialogue is a white thing, right? So we're not going to do that. That's just a Trojan horse for more white supremacy. So we're not going to have a conversation with you, right? Having a conversation with you validates you, right? There's that, right? It dignifies what you're saying to some degree. And also having a conversation will expose their ideas as weak. They don't hold up to scrutiny.
Yeah.
And my questions are considered scrutiny because they kind of are.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So I mean, I would love. Here's what I would love, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I want to talk so badly to other scholars in my field, right? The ones who are abiding by CRT-based anti-racism and things like that.
Your field of rhetoric and composition.
In rhetoric and composition, yes. I want to talk so badly. I will take part in not a debate, a conversation or something like that. Maybe a spirited conversation, not a debate in a formal sense, right? But I will do that. I will be on one side of the stage, and there could be 20 of them on the other side of the stage, and they could collaborate and powwow before every answer, right? I will take that. I will be on the floor in Madison Square Garden, and I'm on one side of the court, and they're on the other, right? I will do that. But they still won't.
All right. Well, that's my clip that I'm putting on Instagram. Yeah. I mean, so the one who is willing, like whenever there's a bad guy in like any movie, the one who says like, I want to talk this out and have a conversation about our ideas, it's never the bad guy.
Yeah.
That's never the bad guy. But they won't. They won't. And if they do, I think that when they do, or if they do, then I just have no doubt that you would be able to express your ideas clearly and poke holes in their ideas easily. And no personal attacks, zero personal attacks. You're not interested in that. It's just about attacking the ideas and revealing them, not just to be bad, but bad for Black Americans. That is a really important element of what you do specifically, the semblance of power. That critical race theory has this idea, this aura that it's empowering, and it's not. It's the opposite of that.
Complete opposite.
Yeah. This isn't going to last, right? I mean, it can't. It can't. Because there's no guardrails to it. So it's just going to go off the rails. And I don't know how much destruction it's going to cause, but how is this what do you think? How is this going to play out, Erec? How do you see this playing out over the next several years?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I wake up every day and this is a new day. I'm going to, go out and do what I've been doing. I'm going to bring my megaphone with me, and that's how I deal with it. I have no idea what things are going to look like in 10 years, But I mean, I have to have hope. I have that positive self-regard that I was talking about before. I know what I can do. I know what I can't. I know what I need to work on and things like that. And hopefully I maintain that attitude. But that's all I have right now, that attitude, and I am not psychic.
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't know either. I think that we have to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff, and like there is, racism is real. Ideas of systemic racism. Like I'm reading Carl Hart's book on the drug wars and crack and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot. When you look at different laws and policies and all kinds of stuff, that's like very aligned with like what systemic racism is, even after 1964. But we have to be able to separate what's legitimate within even critical race theory from the nonsense. And the only way you can do that, like certain people can do that. I have no doubt that you could do it. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people, I think I could do it. You know, I read through like the California Ethnic Studies model curriculum. I'm like, good. Whoa, nope. Yeah, good. Nope. No. But like, I think a lot of people can't separate that. They don't know what is legitimate and what's not. And that's another reason why it works, is because there are elements of it that are actually decent. They're bringing up really good points, but you have to be able to separate those things.
I mean, there are aspects of critical race theory that, you know, make sense. You know, Crenshaw's intersectionality, as it was originally, you know, meant to be construed, is a good idea. It's common sense.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that was like the Ford factory, right? Like, because black men could work on the factory floor and white women could work in the the offices, but black women didn't have a place to go. I think that's So
I'm glad she came up with that term, that term and that concept, right? I'm glad. But it gets twisted now, and the Angelos of the world and the Kindys of the world really twist it. You know, D'Angelo will tell you, you know, it's not whether or not racism happened, it's how it manifested in that situation, right? And there are a lot of people who agree with that and run with that, right? And there are many in my field who agree with that and run with that.
Well, they like being abused almost. It's like, it feels that way. When you read her book, like the one where she talks about going to the picnic, or she's at the park, there's like a picnic and there's a bunch of black people there. She's like, oh, I hope I don't have to go there. It's like, wait a second. Maybe everyone's not racist. Maybe you're racist, lady. It's like Freud. Like, everyone wants to have sex with their mom. It's like, nah, man, that's just you, bro. Like, but she's another one on the Tonight Show and all this kind of stuff, just saying like, oh, we're all so terrible.
Robin DiAngelo gets paid $15,000 every time she tells people how weak black people are. That's her job.
Boom. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well put. Eric, so where can people find you? You're on social media, so you're on Twitter?
Yes, Rhetoric of York.
Okay.
Twitter.
I'll put that. And your book, we didn't even get a chance to talk about it. You also did a book on the on fat acceptance. I'm very interested.
A few years ago, I do a rhetorical analysis of their strategies.
Okay.
And I do it in the framework of structuration, Anthony Giddens' concept of structuration. And I show, you know, this is why it worked, because they got state policies changed so that it's illegal to discriminate against people of size and things like that. I mean, so, you know, they had a lot of victories, you know, and I talk about how they got those victories. I was impressed with that. So.
Oh yeah, that sounds. I mean, that's really like interesting. Like how to bring about change. I think just one more reason why your work is important is like, hey, you want to bring about change? Learn about rhetoric. Like that's one of the ways to do it. Absolutely. Eric, I really appreciate you coming on here. I enjoyed the conversation. I think we touched on a lot. Hope to maybe do it again. You know, as more stuff develops. Your work is a little dense. You know, you're a smart dude, so like it's a little dense sometimes. But is there like if people? I think that it'd be great to get out to teachers and stuff like that. But if people have a tough time kind of breaking down your work, which maybe I'm just a little slow, but like I read through it, and I'm like, oh man, this is dense. Do you have like dummy versions of your work? I think it's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea. Yeah. You're not the first person to tell me that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of projects going on right now in which I have to be a little dense, you know, and that sounded wrong. It sounds like I think I'm stupid or something like that.
No. Dense, like
yes.
Nitty gritty, yeah.
Very involved.
Very intellectual, yeah.
Yes. But maybe after that, I don't know. I mean, I do, you know, write op-eds you know, that,
Yeah.
you know, so there's that, you know,
For
but
Quillette and stuff like that, right?
yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's part of the problem is your ideas. Some people who are just looking for a simple answer, it's hard for them to sometimes get to them. So I think that this was a good conversation because you laid it out in a way that I think was, easy, kind of like bite sized. And I hope that the people listening go, oh yeah, maybe these ideas are bad for Black people, bad for the Black community, bad to put these ideas in young kids' heads,
I
regardless of their
want,
race.
well, two things.
Yeah.
I'm always, I hear myself talking and things like this, and you know, there's a sound in my head when I try to funnel the things I'm talking about into something that's palatable, you know, for a podcast.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, a pile up on the freeway. So it's difficult, and I never really know if I'm being clear. You know, so I guess I am. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
Also, I want to talk to you one of these days about K through 12,
Okay.
you know, and what's going on there with anti-racist pedagogy.
It's bad. Okay. So yeah, well, let's wrap this up because we're over an hour in, but yeah, and then we'll discuss and maybe we'll move on with that. But Erec, thank you so much. And thank you all for listening, and please check out Professor Smith's work. It's very, very important. It's very needed, and it's one of the ways that we're going to get out of this very sticky situation that we're in when it comes to the racialization, that's a word, of everything that we have here in society right now. I think it's one of the ways out. So thank you for doing this.
And thanks for having me. Again, you're giving me an opportunity to my
Happy
words out.
to. Yeah, anytime. You have an open invitation.